Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so nice to see everyone here on this beautiful day. To begin our service, I will read to you Love and Liberation. One thing I have observed, when we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love and romance that makes us want to become better people, the love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs, the love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them, the love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. I think of how delightful it is to see something new in my lovers' faces, something they may only know from inside as a feeling. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact on what is considered organizing. If the goal was to increase the love rather than winning or dominating, rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the eyes of the tactical eyes of war, but through eyes of love. We would see that there's such a thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere there is a complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would organize with the perspective that there is wisdom and experience and amazing love in the communities that we love. And instead of starting up new ideas, organizations all the time, we would want to listen, support, collaborate, merge, and grow through fusion, not competition. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable, and more empathetic. And I'm proud of myself because I found that on my computer. It's a technological miracle. If you'll turn to the inside cover of your bulletin, there you will find our chalice lighting words. And if you'll please repeat them with me. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. If you'll now turn in your hymnal, and those who are able and willing, if you could arise and sing with us, hymn number 360, Here We Are Gathered. Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word.
May all who speak here feel they have been
Heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matters small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can, sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us. As we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song. Thank you. Please be seated. Let's see. Patty, did you have the responsive reading noted? Which number?
No. You mean this Patty? Yeah. No.
Good. Okay.
Just pick a.
I'm going to do that. Let us turn in our hymnal to to responsive reading 663. It's called, yes, mine too. Isn't it all of our favorite? No. One small face with mounds of greenery, the brightest ornaments, we will bring summer to our rooms, as if in spite the summerness of winter come. All creatures bend the rules, even the stars constrained. We make a holiday, the rituals vary as the hopes of humanity. Thank you. I'll make that mean something in just a minute. We come now to that portion of our service honoring joys and sorrows. I light this candle today for a very significant sorrow. And this coming Tuesday, I think the word celebrate is an inappropriate word. I've heard it used, but it's truly not a celebration. It is a memorial of Holocaust Remembrance Day. And though I know that there are people in the world who would have you believe all manner and means of narrative, one being that it was not as bad as it's been stated. I am here to tell you that based on personal family experiences and through a deep study of this period of human history, it is every horrific thing and then some. And it is our opportunity as we reflect and remember so that we can never allow something this heinous occur in the human family again. And that is, again, my sorrow. On a very brief note in the sense of joy, last couple of weeks I don't want to go so far as to say I've never felt better, because that's not true. But I've felt exceptionally better than I have since my procedure occurred on Valentine's Day. And so physiologically, I'm doing well. I've got they claim I'm everything as expected. I'm still suffering a little bit from what I call intermittent fatigue, which I'm trying to comprehend and understand, but the doctor's not worried. So again, I thank you for your concerns, your good thoughts, your prayers, your intentions, whatever term you used to describe your caring and sharing that caring with me. I feel it as a palpable energy, and I'm grateful for it, and it's great to be back. I curse the eclipse. I could have been here. I could have been a contender. But I want to thank Erica, who made every effort to make me a technological wizard, and I think I just ended up being a technological lizard. So, but I'm back and I'm grateful. Thank you. Will anyone else come and share either a joy or a sorrow?
Good morning. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who came out to help us with the clean sweep yesterday. I think the city looks a whole lot better since it did the day before. And here I'm especially pleased that we had, I believe, at least 10 people who helped us clean up around here. So we had one crew that was fixing up our landscaping out front, and then others were picking up garbage as we walked along the city streets. So it was very much appreciated by the Beautification Commission and by me. My concern is I went for an analysis of my pacemaker installation last week, and I was surprised to hear that I am in AFib constantly now. That means my heart rate is going very fast all the time. So that's a concern, but at least I know I'm not going to be 103, but as I might have wanted, but I don't know what the consequence is. Apparently, there isn't anything at this point that I can do except take Eliquis. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, that's it. Anybody else who would like to have a joy or a sorrow?
I just wanted to share a couple thoughts that keep coming to my mind in a prophetic way. I'll state them individually. They're not really connected formally. But first of all is do not let someone you love become just a memory. And the second one is freedom without love is neither.
Thank you.
You have to forgive, my name's Meg. You have to forgive me because I don't remember I don't think I've ever done it, what we do with the rocks. I'm like, I've always wanted to do that. And I'm gazing at these beautiful lilacs, and I'm just like so grateful for them in springtime. Do you take one rock and then you put it into the other and say, oh, okay, I will do that. I just wanted an excuse to come up here and smell the lilacs.
No excuse necessary. Smell away.
Thank you.
When I was making the power line, I contacted Snodgrass last week, and he was not able to send me any information. He took me a few days to respond. He said he'd been very sick for over a week. I said not to worry about it, and I'll contact him again. He didn't say what it was, but he said it was over a week. He wasn't feeling well.
Okay.
I just want to add to what Marge said about yesterday. Joe Ewing single-handedly takes care of the lawn and the bushes and everything and keeps this place looking lovely all summer. So yesterday we all kind of pitched in. Pam sent her best friend Anne Marie to help us. And Abby and Jennifer were like amazing. Abby edged the sidewalks, and he brought professional equipment. It was absolutely amazing. And our little crew got some of the beds in order, and we're going to do another one hopefully next week. So I just want to thank everybody that helped us, and I hope Joe will be happy with the work we've been trying to do to help him.
I don't know, many of you may have already read the entire text of that Times article that was written about Trump and his plans. It's extremely difficult for me to accept that as the way we got to face it. But we've got a real problem, folks, a real problem. And I don't know whether there's anything we can do about it, but I'll just cite two little facts that might frighten you if you read that article. Basically, what the article shows in no uncertain terms is that Donald Trump is following exactly the plan and the action of Adolf Hitler. And furthermore, to make that even more discouraging, Adolf Hitler had about 10% of the population in support of his, whereas Donald Trump has close to half. I don't know how we can stop this. We're going to lose our country. We're going to lose the world if something isn't done to stop this. Read the article.
Thank you.
Well, I was just going to comment on how long have I been here, living here? 4 years. And almost daily, once or twice a day sometimes, I have always run into Lou. And we've always managed to, exchange some sort of greeting. So that's just a super joy that he is here right there in the flesh. And the other thing, this isn't so much, I guess it's kind of happy for me. For almost a month now, I've had half of my collection of porcelain dolls on display in the case at the library. So I'll probably be bringing them back this week. And just to warn you, they may end up downstairs.
Thank you. We now come to that portion of our service whereby we humbly request that you strive to be as generous as you possibly can and choose to be. It is our offering, reminding you that it is through your generosity and only your generosity that it makes this ministry not only possible, but tangible. Come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirring of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Excuse me. One of the things that we do in, I would say, if not all, then most of our churches, is we do try to be somewhat thematic. We set a theme for the month. And for the month of May, the concept, the idea of pluralism springs forth. And, you know, I don't believe in what are called accidents or coincidences. I'm one of these people that believes that there is a synchronicity to life, a kind of a balance in spite of all appearances. And one of the things in that spirit that I speak of that, one of the things that I see more often than not is within some of the churches I've been in contact with over the past, month and a half, that there is a greater emphasis on this issue of pluralism. But it comes forth, at least it did for me in our congregation in Fredonia, and I've seen it mentioned here and I've seen it mentioned elsewhere, is the first principle, the idea that we strive to accept, strive to live within the context, the inherent dignity of each and every being that we come in contact with. And again, I don't think that's an accident. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think one of the things in listening to Peter as he shared, I'd qualify that as a deep sorrow, by no means anything else, is the notion that there are people in the world, and you'd think, my God, you'd think there would be more of a minority than a majority who do understand that until we do have the dignity, until we do basically protect and defend the dignity of each and every being that we come in contact with. And so of course I'm not speaking merely, if I can use that word, of family, friends, people that we like, people that we choose to identify with, but especially those people whom perhaps we do not understand, especially those people who confuse us, and in some instances, yes, even anger us and cause us great confusion as well. And so this concept of pluralism I view as very, very important. I view it as very necessary, because I do not only view it as a statement of, gee, can't we just all get along? But we are reaching a point in human evolution, if I can use that word, evolution. Perhaps I would choose to use the word devolution. But we have reached a point where we now have the capacity to engage in human horror, the likes of which possibly we have not yet seen. You would have thought, as I mentioned in my sorrow, that the Holocaust would have been probably one of the very last, call it a hurrah at that time, for fascism, for the disrespect, and ultimately the annihilation of a people, of various groups of people actually, and yet no. It seems now to have been merely a spark in a greater movement afoot, that if you can't understand them, you laugh at them. If you can't joke them out of existence, you oppress them in a variety of manner and means. And ultimately, what they did call back in the Holocaust, the final solution is we destroy them. This is against every single principle, every single standard of evolution, of growth, of progress. And we don't seem as yet to get that. We seem to think that the more we engage in the might makes right point of view, that somehow or another that particular group is going to win, and it'll overcome any and all obstacles, and we shall have a world of peace. What kind of peace that would look like scares me down to the last fiber of my being. But again, we must strive. There is, and in a sense, there is an answer to the question brought forth. What can we do? What can we do? The only answer is what we have done in previous history, what we are striving to do now, and what we must commit ourselves and double and triple and quadruple our efforts, and that is to do anything and everything in exact opposition to that particular point of view. We don't fight fire with fire, because the only thing fire with fire creates is more need for gasoline, more need for an accelerant, and we move closer and closer to a ways and means that I have yet to be able to completely comprehend, and I think you would join me in that. But a way to commit ourselves, as we have, as this congregation, as congregations throughout the country, to a way of understanding and recognizing that pluralism is not a loss of any kind. It amazes me. You read in the newspaper where, one group is having some kind of a festival, a cultural festival, and then somebody writes some letter to the editor, "You're in America now, we're Americans, do it the American way." There is no American way. There is no American way. First off, we are a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of people ragtag, struggling, fighting for a better life for our children and their children, and all we're striving to do is maintain a sense of identity within a larger identity. I don't know why I don't have a difficult time looking at that, but it seems some people do. And so we have these little, I call them skirmishes, and sometimes, as we've seen in our nation and in nations around the world, they become larger and larger. And so we function in a fear-based system. What am I going to lose? What about those others? Those others. And we don't understand that those others breathe the same air we do. They do everything and anything the same way we do. Maybe a little bit of a different way of worshiping the divine, maybe a little bit of a different way of eating or what have you, but ultimately we are all part of the human species. You know, and sometimes politics speaks truth to religion. American politics. United, we will stand. But if we choose to be divided, we shall fall. That's not a speculation. We've seen it through our history. We see what's happening in Europe. That seems to be consistent. It amazes me that after what happened in Germany, fascism is on the rise in Europe. What staggers my imagination is groups that are more alike than dissimilar are experiencing that even more. And you have people, for example, in different sects of religion, different ethnic subgroups that are still part of the main ethnicity, still find ways to herald and to, in a sense, celebrate the divergence, and to say, no, they have to be like us. They have to conform. And you know the story. I don't need to. I know I'm, as they say, preaching to the choir. But through the course of history, there have been pockets of people that have said pluralism is the only way to make any form of government work, and pluralism is the only way in order for us to achieve what has eluded humankind since probably, I'll use the, if I may be a little poetic here, since the first humans, or the first human, and that's the recognition that we are all in this together. We are all part of a collective consciousness, if I may use that term, and that if we want to do what all religious traditions have dreamed about, talked about, prayed about, if we want to have peace on earth, goodwill toward all humankind, we got to want that more than anything else we've ever wanted, anything, and we've got to be able to do it. God, if you want to use a term, infinite consciousness, infinite intelligence, expresses itself, my opinion, by the way, to humankind through humankind. Are you an instrument of the divine? And what I mean by divine is that is what is progressive, that is what is good, that is what seeks the highest good, not just for self, because that's selfishness, and that never ends well, but self in the total sense of self for brothers and sisters, whether they be different colored skin, whether they be different religions, different culturalizations, does not matter. The recognition of that self and the working toward that is the only thing that has ever brought us any true peace. And frankly, as I call myself a spiritual humanist, if one can be that, it is the only thing that will ever bring about a true and lasting peace. I look at some of the things that have brightened the horizon, because what I'm talking about is not new. In 1787, James Madison, in the Federalist Papers, paper number 10, if you're interested, wrote about the pluralistic concept. In fact, he is, in a sense, credited with giving us kind of the definition of how we interpret pluralism in this country. And he basically said that if you cannot have pluralism, if you cannot give equal rights to people, if you can't give equal votes to people, if you can't treat people on the balance with an equity, with justice and compassion, nothing works in government. Nothing. Again, the Federalist Papers, number 10, if you're interested. In October 19th of 2015, Jews, Arabs got together, and forgive me also, I'd forgotten it, I'm just kind of, my train got derailed for a second there. It was people of the Judaic faith, the Islamic faith, and the Hindu faith all got together in the Middle East. I say all got together, this large group of people got together to establish a pluralistic community, not to live in, but a politically pluralistic point of view, so that they understood at depth the need for pluralism, the need to establish themselves, that they could be anything and everything that they ever have been, culturally, religiously, and in every way possible, and still be part of a whole. Not impossible. Not impossible, they said. And so they exist from 2015 and are continuing to bear an influence. I mentioned just a few minutes ago, and in answer to Peter's question, what do we do? Well, obviously, if you see something that's wrong, in a political sense, you get up off your hindquarters when it comes time to vote, and you vote against that thing that is not for the good of the majority in any way, shape, or form. And you talk to people, not in argumentative, cross the sabers kind of, I don't want to call them discussions, but in diatribes, but we have to find a way to meaningfully dialogue so that we can ask people, well, great, this is what you plan on getting by following this point of view. What does everybody else get? Is that fair? Is that reasonable? Do we think that that's going to end well if we study human history? It amazes me how many people don't think that through. And one other thing that I think is very important, and I see this quite a bit, and it's mentioned amongst us and a few other liberal traditions, not so much anyplace else as far as I can see. I remember I said pluralism and how we deal with all beings. How do we treat animals? How do we? Okay, now this is not going to be a discussion on vegetarianism versus carnivorism, etc. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit more basic because I like taking baby steps. Sometimes, though, if you can get that underway, you can get to the larger discussions later. But the point is, Gandhi said, how we treat our animals really is a reflection of our character and will ultimately reflect in how we treat each other. I agree. St. Thomas Aquinas, great Catholic apologist, said, man is but a rational animal. Well, Thomas, I agree with the animal part. Not completely on board with the rational part. And as I mentioned there and here now, we talked about Holocaust. It's not the only thing. There's the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. There are all manner and means of, I call them mini, and that's not to minimize, but smaller Holocausts throughout the world. Somehow or another, people are not getting it. I'm reading a book right now, which is a fascinating read. It's called The End of Suffering. Its subtitle is Fearless Living in Troubled Times, or How to Get Out of Hell Free. Catchy, isn't it? It was written by two incredibly intelligent and well-versed individuals, Russell Targ, T-A-R-G, and J.J. Hurtak, H-U-R-T-A-K, and I believe this came out in 2005. And it's basically I'll use the term more of a Buddhist interpretation of how we approach things. And these gentlemen said, you know, Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, who also talked about, and you know, how Greek philosophy evolved in this concept of pluralism, and that's lovely. But he said the biggest problem we have, and he quoted, I had it here, pardon me just a second. There was a Buddhist teacher by the name of Nagarjuna, N-A-G-A-R-J-U-N-A, Nagarjuna, who the Dalai Lama claimed, still claims, was probably the most enlightened being since the Buddha. And Nagarjuna basically said, you know, none of this can work unless we eliminate the way we think. That most of us think of ourselves as separate, unique, distinct individuals. So the Aristotelian, say that 3 times fast, is I exist or I don't exist, okay? I wasn't going to share this with you, but forgive me for trying because it was important to me, because it is complicated. However, with Nagarjuna says, it's not you exist or you don't exist. You exist and you don't exist. Catchy, isn't it? What he's basically saying is that we are, at our absolute essence, interconnected with everything. We hear this in mysticism of various sorts. We are interconnected. So you and me, we are truly not, quote, individuals, but we are part of a collective consciousness, if you want to call it that. And what he basically says is that if you develop that understanding, and if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it, so don't get nervous, we would be able to eliminate our sense of the other. And if we could eliminate our sense of the other, then what a wonderful world it could be. That's a given. That's not hard. But the hard part is because we are so wrapped up in being individuals, and then we get into these little groups who become, in a sense, their own kind of subset of a group of individuals we don't identify with, and what you can't identify with, you will either, again, ignore, and you may at some point come even close to trying to get rid of it to maintain superiority, to maintain control. Whereas with the elimination of the other, we begin to feel, and that's significant because that's important, we begin to feel that we are interconnected. That my highest good, my highest worth, my highest value is as equally important as yours is, and yours is as equally important. And you see how that kind of consciousness, we get away from being asleep at the wheel, asleep at this, because we have, so locked into this individuality, that when we begin to expand that consciousness to a sense of interconnectedness and levels, things are no longer black, white, but all of the myriad shades of gray that make up life that we are still striving to comprehend, understand, and grow. But again, this will give you a headache, I guarantee it. It's hard, but it is a worthwhile read, especially if we're trying to help be part of the solution rather than be part of the problem. Many times people who accept fascism and other thinking, they're not bad people. They are frightened people. They are scared people. They are people who don't know which way to turn. And that goes back to the proposition. If we can strive to reach out to each other with more compassion, with more love, with more empathy, with a philosophy of pluralism that we strive to make work one person at a time, one day at a time, we then move forward. Will anybody in this room live to see peace on earth, goodwill toward all humankind at the so-called end of, the day? I don't know. The key is not to worry about what's going to happen, because bear in mind, I'm remembering the Holocaust. That did not happen thousands of years ago. That did not happen hundreds of years ago. It was just a matter of a few, technically, years ago. So let's not worry about what was, except as a guidepost, as a teaching tool. I can't tell you how vehemently I'm opposed to this nonsense where, no, we're not going to teach our kids about this stuff. We're not going to teach our kids how we stole this country from the Native Americans. We're not going to teach people how 6 million human beings were systematically, with malice and intent, murdered because of one man's insanity. No, we don't want to teach that, because that will upset them. I want it to upset them. I want it to upset them so much that they learn what we understood when we were children and being taught by the survivors of these things. And I say it in Polish because that was how I learned it. Nigdy więcej. Never again. And that's what I'm suggesting, that we can strive to learn, from these things, but again, to leap forward, do something positive, do something meaningful. I believe it's possible. I will never quit. I will never surrender. I will never give up, because at the end of my experience, whether there is obliteration or whether hopefully there's Ron Skowronski's Disneyland, we all have our version of heaven, don't we? Then I will at least know that this life has been worth living because I kept trying. So it is in that spirit of pluralism, of love, compassion, and empathy, I say thank you, and I bid you peace.
I think we need to take a field trip up to Mississauga, Brampton, and North Brampton. I had the joy throughout late 90s. I could go down the street, I could go into a Catholic church, I could go into a synagogue, I could go into a mosque, a Buddhist temple, and everybody worked in tandem. Just take a look. It actually is happening in places.
I will tell you, there is a Egyptian, I'll just share this very briefly. I know I'm technically done, but you know me, I'm never really done. There is an Egyptian political analyst. God, I wish I could remember his name. He used to be very popular. He was on television shows like ABC's Nightline with Ted Koppel. Irzak something or another, but very, very articulate, very pluralistic. And he shares an interesting story. He says, before all of this dust up and ultimately heinous massacre and unbelievable inhumanity in the Middle East occurred, you could be Palestinian or you could be Arab, and if you, any ilk of, from that part of the world. And if you hailed a cab, the person would, jump in the cab, and let's say the driver was, or let's say Palestinian, and the cab fare was Jewish, you would wish each other happy holidays. You would wish each other, a wonderful Ramadan. If that was the case for the Arab gentleman, the Arab gentleman would wish happy Passover to the other person. For some reason, we did have a bit of time when we were getting it. And then it all unraveled, as humanity tends to from time to time. And what this book has helped me recognize, and there's, from people like Paramahansa Yogananda, Ramakrishna, and some of the other, whether they be Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, etc., the Eastern point of view is again infinitely more pluralistic than the Western traditions. And that ultimately, like most of these so-called avatars or holy men, and I'd love to see a lot more mention of holy women because there have been a bunch, but we don't, there is a problem there too. But the point is that they basically believe that they could go into a Hindu temple, a Catholic church, a Jewish synagogue, a Unitarian Universalist church, and completely feel comfortable. Completely feel comfortable. Because they can separate, okay, this is how they choose to, this is their response to the divine. May not be mine, but it's okay. I'm a happy guest. I will respect what is happening, and then I'll eat their cookies, I'll drink their coffee or whatever, and hopefully we'll have a meaningful discussion, and we will know more about each other, and this can grow. That's another sermon. Okay. Thank you. Now, I do hope that indeed meant something to you. It is so good to be back. Let's see here. Let's turn to hymn numbers 370, and arise and sing, those who are willing and able, all people that on earth do dwell. It's a familiar tune.
All people that on earth do dwell,
Sing ye aloud with cheerful voice. Let hearts in exaltation swell. Come together and rejoice. Oh, welcome in this day with praise. Approach with joy your God unto. Give thanks and faith proclaim always. For it is seemly so to do. For we believe that life is good. Love doth abide forevermore. Truth firmer than a rock has stood, and shall from age to age endure. As we so often affirm and know, we have gathered together as brethren, as brothers and sisters of choice, as those who understand the inherent dignity and worth of every being that we come in contact with. And though it is challenging, difficult, and sometimes even feels like it may be impossible, we choose to attempt to do the impossible, to love ourselves, to love our neighbors as ourselves, and to look beyond our neighbors, to look throughout the world as it is manifest, and in spite of the appearance, affirm that God is love, and those who choose to love shall truly know the divine. As we continue our growth, our evolution, and our progress for ourselves, and work for a world that truly works for everyone. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, announcements.
I just have a quick one, that the annual meeting is 2 weeks from today. If you have any articles you want to send me, to send it in by next week. And at coffee hour, we might have tequila sunrises, if anybody would like to drink.
I have a card for Terry Kime, those of you who were here when Terry was our minister. I'm going to be meeting with her next week, and anybody who wants to sign the card, I'll have it down at coffee hour.
Thank you. We were joking the other week. I had known that Terry was getting married, and I kept saying to myself, self, I've got to let the congregation in Niagara Falls know. Well, Terry got married, and I forgot to let you know. Terry's been married for a little bit now, and I still forgot to let you know. So, thank you. But she's very happy. She's in the process of selling her home in Fredonia, and they claim, I want to say maybe by the middle or end of June, moving to England to be with her husband and establish a home there. And she's very happy. And when she and I discussed it, she wanted to send you her love and gratitude because she knew you were sending her good wishes. So a couple of things ever so briefly. Obviously, after this service, please join us for coffee and refreshments down in the fellowship hall. I will be with you one last time for the church year. I believe it's the first, Sunday of June. And I'm bringing lunch. I'm going to be making a world-famous, life-changing, often imitated but never duplicated Polish casserole. Some of you may look at it and go, Alpo. Others may think, wow, this is interesting. It's in the tasting, my friends, in the tasting. So I'm definitely going to be bringing lunch, so bring an appetite, because I'm going to bring a bucket. And thank you for your support.
Chalice?
What's that?
Chalice extinguisher.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I'm doing better. Not great yet, but better. Okay. Let us turn to the back cover of your, inside of your bulletin, and please recite these chalice extinguishing words with me. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Okay, I'll be really, really quick. But this does kind of remind me of the mishmash we're in. Take a one-eyed frog from a bubbling bog, rub it down with talcum powder, feed a kidney cake to a rattlesnake, and then pound him into chowder. Pour them in a dish with some jellyfish. Boil them till they are delish. Don't be cautious at a pair of galoshes and a bunch of gobblefish. Gobblefish, gobblefish, gobblefish soup. Your eyebrows jump and your whiskers droop. Your guts go boing and you loop the loop with gobblefish, gobblefish, gobblefish soup.